Ni hao. Hello everyone. I'm Florent Merle. I come from France. I'm a representative from the French Biodiversity Agency, which is the main actor in terms of biodiversity conservation, restoration and protection in France. I'm really happy being here. I would like to thank Taiwanese authorities, to thank National Taiwan University, especially you, DG Lu, for inviting me. So we know each other since years. So you came in France in 2023 for Symposium for France and Taiwan regarding biodiversity, and you told me that you will invite me in Taiwan, and yeah, there we are, and I'm really grateful about your invitation, and yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Then I will present today the national organization in France, talking about biodiversity. First, presenting what is doing my agency, the French Biodiversity Agency, and then I will talk a bit about our national biodiversity strategy, and then the national strategy for protected areas. Then I introduce my presentation talking about what is at stake about biodiversity in France. So as we are located in Central Europe, we have a wide variety of ecosystems, ecoregions, because we are located throughout 4 ecoregions in France, through Atlantic, Continental, Mediterranean and Alpine. And thanks to our overseas territories, we are also located in tropical ecosystem. We contain 10% of world known species. We are located on 5 of the 34 biodiversity hotspots, and we account for 10% of the world's total coral reef surface. And we are also responsible of the second largest economic exclusive zone in the world, and more than 20,000 key areas has been identified for biodiversity. But as others, we are facing a continuous decline in terms of biodiversity, as 41% of wetlands are degraded, only 6% of coastal and marine ecosystems are in good status of conservation. We have also a big issue with invasive alien species, and 21% of wetlands mammals are threatened. In terms of conservation status of habitat and species, we are pretty bad, because 20% of habitats are in good status of conservation, only 20%, and 28% of species are in good status of conservation. So what is the national organization to face the challenge of biodiversity loss? And I'd like to explain that we have 3 layers for addressing biodiversity loss. The main one is a European level, because as you might know, environment is a shared competency with European and European Commission, and as we have this shared responsibility for environment, 95% of all regulations regarding environment are coming from European directives. At the national level, we have different ministries in charge of biodiversity, such as the Ministry for an Ecological Transition, Ministry for Agriculture, and they are responsible to build public policies, and they are also responsible for EU reporting. And we have agencies and organizations in charge of implementation. And my agency, the French Biodiversity Office, is one of the main actors in terms of implementation. And of course, we have a subnational level with regional council and municipalities, which are responsible for implementation through territories. So what is the French Biodiversity Agency? It's quite new, because we were created in 2020, gathering 5 former agencies in charge of biodiversity: the Agency for Marine Protected Areas, an agency for training nature staff, Agency for Water and Aquatic Ecosystems, the National Park Agency, and the last one was the Agency for Wildlife and Hunting. And we merged all together to create only one stakeholder, one agency in charge of biodiversity. So we are running under the supervision of two ministries, Ministry for an Ecological Transition and Ministry for Agriculture. And we are mainly 3,000 staff everywhere in France and also in overseas. And we have roughly 600 million euro budget per year. And why a single agency? It's a really good question. We wanted to establish a leading organization in France in the field of biodiversity. And also we wanted to pool resources and efforts for the implementation of the national strategy and the global biodiversity framework. So we are located everywhere in France, and as 2/3 of our staff are basically rangers. We call it environmental inspectors. They are located in each local territories, so everywhere, and we have 3 main offices in Brittany, in Paris, and in Montpellier, south of France. And we are also located throughout our French overseas territories, in Caribbean, in French Guiana, in Indian Ocean, and also in Pacific Islands. So we have 5 main missions delegated by the 2 ministries. The first one is support for implementation of EU and French public policies. Second one is to develop knowledge, research, and expertise regarding habitat and species. Third one is to conserve and manage protected areas in France. Then is to mobilize society for mainstreaming biodiversity. And the last one is to ensure the law enforcement and wildlife health. So I go into details regarding those 5 missions. The first one is to support French public policies through implementation of European Union directives. So we have different ones. The main one is habitat, fauna, flora. We have also a directive on water, on birds, on marine ecosystems. And the last one is a nature restoration law, which is really challenging to implement. And at the national level, we are really working through the national strategy for biodiversity and the national strategy for protected area. And I will present it in details afterwards. And we have different also national action plans regarding ecosystems and species. And we have also the mission to train officials everywhere in France in the protection of biodiversity, even officials from municipalities. The second mission is to develop knowledge, research, and expertise. So we collect basically data on water, ecosystem, and species, and we aim to promote them and to make them available for all publics. We coordinate the National Information System on biodiversity, water, and marine ecosystems. We carry out research activities in our specialized research center, and we also contribute to the development of knowledge with different kinds of organizations, such as associations, universities, and research organizations. And we manage what we call the National Biodiversity Observatory, which provides indicators to follow up the state of biodiversity for both general public and specialists. Third mission is to conserve and manage protected areas. So our goal of protecting 30% has been reached, as we have a network of 33.4% of the national territory and maritime spaces under jurisdiction. And we have different tools to protect nature in France. So the first one here is national parks and marine parks. And then on the right side, you can see other kind of reserve, national reserve. We have regional reserves, and we have also regional parks. And then we have the European network, which is called the Natura 2000 network, covering roughly 13% of land area and 35% of marine areas, which is big, and we have more than 27 protected areas in Europe and 1,700 roughly in France. And at the international scale, we have what we call the Reserve of Biosphere from UNESCO and the Ramsar site for wetlands. And the French Biodiversity Agency is the first manager of protected areas in France, and we manage directly marine nature parks, a marine mammal sanctuary in French Caribbean, all marine Natura 2000 areas and 4 terrestrial Natura 2000 areas, wildlife reserves, and also national nature reserves, 8, and 1 biosphere reserve. And what is important to mention is that national parks are affiliated with OFB. As such, we provide common administrative services to national parks, such as human resources, finance, communication, and a legal platform. And we lead also scientific and technical inter-park working groups. And we act as a network for protected areas in France, as we lead and we organize what we call the Conference of Protected Areas 3 times per year, to bring together all national networks talking about the implementation of the national strategy for protected areas. Fourth mission is to mobilize society to mainstream biodiversity into public policies and promote commitment. And we have different initiatives to address this mission. The first one is to design and found what we call the regional biodiversity agencies. So it's a cooperation with local governments to enhance the missions of the OFB through region and local stakeholders. We have another initiative which is the Atlas of Communal Biodiversity. It's really how to assess the state of the art of the local biodiversity in order to protect it in the land use and landscape planning. And we have also initiatives dedicated to companies, to other local authorities, and to charities and associations to mobilize and commit themselves to what we call a transformative change. And last but not least, we are managing what we call the Educational Areas Program, which is a great way to involve youth people in the management of natural areas, as they aim to protect small areas close to the school and being involved with their teacher in the management of this area, assessing the biodiversity and promoting a commitment through at the very local level. So it's very important to engage youth in the conservation of nature. And the last mission is to ensure the law enforcement on the ground. So we have 2,000 environmental inspectors, rangers across France, and they are qualified to ensure all public tasks regarding environment, including investigations. So they are responsible for pollution, poaching, hunting, fishing, wildlife health, police, and they can intervene into protected areas and outside protected areas. And they are also responsible of the CITES implementation, and they produce advices to reduce environmental impact of the significant project. Then, at the international level, I will go fast about that. We are supporting our two ministries in the negotiation for international conventions. So we are part of the official delegation of the CBD, of the CITES, Ramsar, CMS, the Convention for Migratory Species, and other kind of multilateral environment agreements. We are setting institutional relations at both levels, in Europe with our counterparts, cross-border partnership, and also at the international level through MOUs and specific agreements. And at the multilateral level, we are involved in many networks, such as Europark, for example, and we have also a network of European head of nature conservation agencies. Through Mediterranean, we have also many kind of networks, and at the international level, we are part of the Marine Protected Area Agency Partnership. And we aim to set up international projects and to fund international projects. Of course, at the European level, we have many kind of projects. So we have been involved in roughly 60 projects at the European level. But we aim also to support the setting up of international projects. So we have different kind of projects with, for example, South Africa. In sub-Saharan region, we have also a project to develop sustainable management and wise use of wetlands. We are also involved in a project in Indian Ocean through a network of MPS managers. In Caribbean as well, and in French Guiana regarding the protection of jaguars. And we do provide support for international stakeholders, actors, such as international conventions. And we also support the BBNG process and other researchers and NGOs talking about international projects. I'd like to continue my presentation talking a bit about our national strategy for biodiversity and action plan. So from the GBF to the national strategy. So I'd like to start talking about those two timelines. So the CBD process has been engaged from 1992 from the Rio International Summit. And in France, we put in place our first national biodiversity strategy in 2004. And so far, we have launched our third national biodiversity strategy in 2023. Meaning just after the COP15 Kunming Montréal. So for those who might not know about CBD, it's an international convention regarding biodiversity with three main objectives, which are the conservation of biodiversity, the sustainable use of biodiversity, and the fair and equitable sharing of the benefits deriving from the use of genetic resources. And the Kunming-Montréal Biodiversity Framework was adopted in 2022 in Montréal. So we have two visions, long-term visions with 4 goals up to 2050. First, to reduce threats to biodiversity, to conserve and sustainable use of resources, to access to and sharing of benefits from genetic resources, and means for implementation of the global framework. And then we have this medium-term vision up to 2030 with 23 targets divided into 3 groups. First is reducing threats to biodiversity, meeting people's needs through sustainable use and benefit sharing, and tools and solutions for implementing and mainstreaming biodiversity. And this is a response for the 5 main pressures identified on biodiversity by the International Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services through the destruction and artificialization of natural habitats, climate change threats, overexploitation of natural resources and illegal trade, pollutions, and introduction of invasive alien species. So this is the 23 targets of the GBF. And yeah, coming to our strategy, so it's really aligned with the GBF, and the rationale is to by 2050, biodiversity will be valued, conserved, restored, and used sustainably, thereby helping to maintain ecosystem services, preserve the health of the planet, and provide essential benefits for all. So this is the architecture, basically, of our national biodiversity strategy. So we have 4 main pillars. First is to reduce pressures. Then is to restore degraded biodiversity, to engage all stakeholders and ensure the means to achieve these ambitions. And then we have different measures and we have actions to develop this strategy. So meaning 4 main pillars, 40 measures, and 200 actions. And this is how we organize the architecture from the international framework to the European framework to the national biodiversity strategy at the national level. And we have been working with regions to implement what we call regional biodiversity strategies, and then to implement them at the very local level through local urban planning documents. And in terms of indicators for monitoring the strategy, so we have different kind of indicators, and we have key indicators which are detailed here, 8 status indicators and 7 pressures indicators to monitor the strategy. And we have other kind of indicators which are aligned with the global biodiversity framework, but as we have different tools for implement, we have the challenge to align all those indicators. So we have indicators for the national strategy, we have indicators for the global biodiversity framework, and we have among those 2 indicators EU directive indicators with the restoration law. And the challenge we have is to align all those indicators to monitor the implementation of the national strategy up to the global biodiversity framework. And we have a system for accountability of the strategy, because we have to report at 4 levels within the government, in the General Secretariat for what we call ecological planning, which is monitoring at the national level the implementation of the national strategy. We have also to report at the National Biodiversity Committee, which is another committee who is accountable for reporting the implementation of the national strategy. We have to report at the European Union and at the Convention for Biological Diversity. So it means we have a big challenge in terms of accountability, And we have also a big challenge regarding coordination at the national level. And when we are talking about implementation of the national strategy, it means 18 ministries and state operators are involved in the implementation, which is big. A few figures regarding the major pressures on biodiversity. So the first one is about land use consumption, and the train is not so bad. The aim is for 2030, and the train is still good so far. So far, so good. The second one is to reduce the impact of climate change, and the train is also not so bad. We have still a big issue regarding invasive alien species. And we have also a big issue regarding surexploitation of fish stock. And regarding pollution, it's so because it depends of the type of pollution. But all chemical pollution, we have a trend which is really not sufficient, not enough so far. I'd like to finish, if I may, in terms of, it's okay, talking a bit about the national strategy for protected areas, which is a really important one. Just saying very quickly that we have merged our two former strategy in terms of protection and conservation of MPAs and mainland protected areas in 2021 to set up only one strategy for protected areas. So we have been working through the 2021-2030 national strategy, and we are so far in the third action plan of the 2030 strategy. So I go through the IUCN definition. The new architecture of the strategy is to gather terrestrial and marine protected areas, to have a unique strategy for mainland and also overseas territories. So all types of protected areas are involved in the strategy, and the aim is really to define ambition targets regarding the creation and the management of protected areas. I will present it quickly. So we have an architecture with 7 main objectives and 18 measures, and we have more than 100 actions. And the main objectives are the 7 objectives. The first one is to develop a network of protected areas which is resilient to global changes. So protecting 30% of the national territory and 10% under height protection. So we reach the target of 30%, but we are still working hard to reach the 10% high protection target, because so far we are only 4% of high protection within our network. The second objective is to support the implementation of an effective and custom-made management for each protected areas. So through the management, through the effective management of each protected areas, we have to custom-made each management plan. And we have to improve the methodology for managing, evaluating, and adapting the management. Then the third objective is to support sustainable activities in the protected area network, which is really good to ensure that the sustainable management of protected areas is doing well and also compatible with users of biodiversity within protected areas. And we have one example with a brand which is Marque Esprit Park, promoting local productions within national parks. The fourth objective is to increase the integration of network of protected areas into local context, with territorial planning and integration of communities within the governance of protected areas. Sorry, I go through the seventh objective. The fifth one is to strengthen international cooperation, so as we are doing today. And six is to have a durable network of protected areas and work through connectivity, which is also a big challenge. And the last one is to consolidate the role of protected areas in improving knowledge regarding biodiversity. So I'm going to conclude regarding the current OFB challenges in France. As I mentioned, is really to implement from global commitments to effective implementation. Then is to deliver regarding transformative change. Third is really to build societal support and legitimacy for the agency and for basically for an overall goal about the conservation of nature. Working through also biodiversity and climate integration, ecological restoration and connectivity, which is our big challenge, monitoring indicators and data, and also last but not least is secure long-term funding for protected areas. Then, thank you very much.